Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing Easy, where easy and best are seldom on the same path. And that's a quote by Alan Arnold, who is a coach, business coach, as well as an author. And life is easy. It's the choices that we make that are hard, which is a quote from my husband, Ron Leet. Listen in as everyday ordinary people, which I have on this podcast today, give us some stories about how they've overcome some hardships through authentic and unscripted conversation. So I hope that you will help me to welcome Charise to the podcast. Thank you, Charise, for coming and just your willingness to be able to share your story, which is pretty amazing, actually.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Can we start? Let's talk about how we met. I always like to do that. So how did we meet?
We met on a trip to the Bahamas in the middle of the ocean.
And here we are.
Truly.
It's crazy. Yeah. So, the reason that I wanted you to share that is because we just really need to be intentional about the people that we surround ourselves with. And sometimes you're going to meet somebody who you really just connect with. And whether I had a podcast or not, I would say that you're somebody that would be really cool to connect with just over the course of a couple of days that we got to know each other. So
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't even know you had a podcast when we were talking.
Yeah. See, you probably would not have shared what you did if you thought I might ask you to be on it.
No.
But I am. I'm glad that you've volunteered, should I say, to be a guest.
Yes. You're welcome. And thank you.
You're welcome. So now that we got all the formalities out of the way, let's get into the meat of it. And again, this is unscripted. She has no idea what I'm going to be asking. I don't even know what I'm going to be asking. But I know the context. So Charise, there were two specific stories that you had shared with me that really touched my heart. And the first one that you were sharing had to do with you were 17 years old and something happened and you had to make a decision. And so I'm hoping that maybe you'll walk us through what happened at 17, what you were feeling, and then a little background that you can share so that we get a context of what happened when you discovered something. So what was that something?
When I was 17, I became pregnant. I was 6 months away from graduating high school, and it was not ideal. I don't think any teenager gets pregnant and thinks that this is going to be great. This is exactly what I wanted.
I would agree.
So I waited as long as possible to tell my parents, and then I told them. And I had shared it with my boyfriend at the time. And his initial thought was, you should probably, have an abortion. Like it almost like it wasn't up for discussion. And I took a little bit longer because I didn't really know if that was something I wanted. I knew I didn't want a baby at that time because I had thoughts and plans of my own when I graduated.
And let me
and
stop
at that,
Did you think, Charise, that being pregnant and having a baby was going to interfere with all of those plans that you had?
I did. At the time, the mentality that I had at that age, yes, I did.
Okay.
I was still selfish, I think, at that point. So I wasn't scared. I just really, my gosh, I didn't even really like my parents at that time. I didn't have a thought of wanting to be a parent of my own to a child. Like, what was I going to do,
Yeah.
By the time I told my mom, I had come around to yes, I agree. I don't think I want this baby. I will go and have the abortion. And she helped me make the appointment. And she took me to that appointment. And all the while, like, my mom is she's non-confrontational. She keeps her thoughts and feelings to herself, and that's kind of the household I was brought up in. Don't talk about it, it's not happening. So she was quiet through the whole thing. And we go to the clinic, we fill out the paperwork, I pay the fee, and I get back into that room, and I mean, I did everything down to put a gown on, feet up in the stirrups, doctor comes in and is trying to perform the procedure. And I I had convulsions basically from the waist down where he wasn't able to perform what he needed to perform. He said in the state that I was in, he was not going to be able to proceed with it. And in my mind, I'm sitting there laying there and I'm thinking, I don't really want to do this anyway. I don't want to do this. I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. Um, and so I get dressed and I leave with my mom, and she was happy and sad at the same time, I think. I don't think in her mind she ever would have wanted me to go through with it, but she was supporting the decision I had made. And so that's that. I tell my boyfriend he really didn't want anything to do with me after that. And it's fine. He was not the love of my life, and I honestly I knew it at that time. He wasn't my person. He's just the person that was there at the time. As sad as that is to say. So, yeah, I
Wow.
then
So,
had a baby, and this girl changed my life.
well, I want to talk about that happy moment, but I want to ask a couple of questions because there are probably some people in our listening audience right now who might be in that position where they have a surprise pregnancy.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter what age they are, their background, any of that stuff. They have
Yeah.
a surprise pregnancy. And so they're thinking through a crisis of what they're going to do. So the first question I have is, I know you said your mom was kind of quiet. Did she at any
Mhm.
time offer any alternatives to what you were considering?
Um, no. And that is just that's one of those things where we didn't talk about things like that. I mean, I was the girl that asked for birth control and was refused to be given birth control. And like,
Mm.
so no, she didn't really offer up anything other than to support whatever I wanted to do at this point. Um, and then my dad was even less supportive. So
And
that's a
what
whole
was your
different.
background? Was there something in your background that maybe helped you to make a decision? Like, how were you raised?
Um, no, I mean, I was raised in this. My dad is the boss of the house. My mom succumbs to what he wants. He is my stepdad. He adopted me when I was 3, and one of those life decisions my mom did make and regrets to this day is not letting my real dad and his family be a part of my life when I was younger.
Mm.
Um, his family is a part of my life now. I've still never met him before, but I've met his family. Um, but she didn't let them in because my stepdad refused to let them in. So he was the boss. We went to school, we made good grades, we came home, we had chores. At the time I had a job, so I also worked after school and, not very many sports or anything. I worked and came home. Did what
Okay.
I was told for the most part. I tried to stay out of trouble because I didn't want the hand of my dad to come down on me if I did something out of line. So this was this was difficult. I was grounded when he found out I was pregnant because
Mm.
I don't even know how that does anything, but yeah, so I mean
Just
that's
exercising authority.
a stern yeah, that's exactly what it was my whole life. So,
True.
uh,
And then as far as like faith, I mean, was there anything to do with faith in any of it that had any significance or a
um
bearing on the decision?
No, for me personally, yes, I was raised in this Catholic household, sort of. I went to Catholic school when I was first and second grade, and then my dad decided to pull me out because him and my mom felt that I should join public school. He wasn't really, when I say raised Catholic, we went to Easter, we went to Christmas, we went to masses. We didn't go to regular weekly mass.
Okay.
It was never that big, but for his family, it really was. Like, you went to church every week, and
Mm.
you were a practicing Catholic. He was not a practicing Catholic. So we didn't really have anything like that. And I don't know that that even fits into my life today. I'm a true believer in everything happens for a reason, and that you just don't know what that reason is until it presents itself.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I would say, I mean, it's sort of a joke in the Christian circles that
Mm.
maybe you're a CEO, which is Christmas and Easter only. You know,
Truly,
you're
that's actually how I was raised.
yeah. First time
Yeah.
I've heard that term, like a CEO, and then they told me, I
Oh,
said, "Yeah, that makes absolute sense."
I've never heard it, but that
Yeah,
makes so much sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward then. You kind of alluded to you've got a daughter,
Mhm.
that you weren't really scared, but I want to go back to the table. I don't want you to live there because I don't want you to relive that. But you said that you knew that this wasn't something that you wanted to follow through with.
Yeah, I didn't. But I didn't want to upset my boyfriend at the time. Like,
Mm.
sometimes I feel like I still live, or I used to, up until I was about 30. I think I lived for other people, and I made decisions for other people, and I always put myself last.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So,
Hmm.
yeah.
There's somebody that you're speaking to right now, probably a whole bunch of somebodies that you're speaking to right now, because people pleasers do exactly that. They want to
Yeah.
please everybody else and they put themselves last, and it doesn't usually work out long term.
No.
Um, we are broken. We're beautifully broken, but to be able to recognize that and to know that that's not what I want anymore in my life, it
Yeah.
takes a lot to change from being a people pleaser to actually loving people, but in the way that you love them, not based on what somebody else's schedule is or expectation is of you. And
Yeah.
that's hard.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that also comes from how you were raised. I'm sorry you're upset.
Oh, no, no, I'm not. It's just
It's deep.
it always brings up emotions, and I am a very emotional person.
Yeah.
And these kind of subjects are just something that does that, and it's not in a bad way. Um, I have no issues with any of the decisions I did make. I wish I hadn't ever gone as far as I did with trying to have the abortion. Um, but I can't undo what has been done. I can just, I can share my story. I've told my daughter. My daughter knows the story, and she's grateful for that. She considers
Mm.
herself a cat, that she's got 9 lives, and that was just one of them. So,
Well, I think it's interesting, and I'm not here to sway you one way or the other on faith or your beliefs. That's not my role. But you knew in your heart that you didn't want to do that. And as you're laying on the table and the doctor is ready to perform, and first of all, I don't want to ever give kudos to abortionists, but for him to say he's not going to strap you down, which is what they do today, so that you're still long enough so that he doesn't perforate anything internally, for him to say, I can't do it in your condition, it is kudos to him. But for your body to respond the way it did to protect your daughter,
mhm.
who could not protect herself,
Yep.
that's divine intervention, my friend.
It really is.
There's,
It's from above. It is a greater power than myself.
yes.
I don't have to put a name to it. I just know that it's a greater power that existed in that very moment for a purpose.
Mhm. Yeah. So you have a blessing now
Uh,
through that
I do.
almost tragedy. And now you
Yeah.
have an incredible, excuse me, testimony to share.
Oh,
So now you're going to have the baby. Um, tell me what you're thinking now, because before it was like, I'm going to give up all these things that I want to do. I can't raise a
Oh,
kid. And so it was easy, wasn't it?
oh, no.
I'm
Gosh.
kidding.
Going back to that feeling of that next 6 months, there was probably 7 months, I guess, because that was in March and she wasn't born until September, the end of September. So
Mm.
that next 6 to 7 months was very long, living at home. You're going to school. And at the time, yes, they did have separate schools for girls that were pregnant. They didn't really want the pregnant ones walking around the halls. I did not opt to go to that school. I'm like, I'm staying in public school. I don't need to leave this school. They did not force me to leave. So I
Now, hold on.
graduated.
When you say they,
Yeah,
are you talking about the school
the school
administration or your
system.
parents? Okay.
The school administration, not my parents.
Wow.
It was really frowned upon to have, I mean, we're talking the late 90s. It wasn't common to have a pregnant girl in school. And we did have a school just for pregnant girls. I
Mm.
didn't want to be segregated any more than I already felt I was in a class of 350 people. So I opted to stay there.
You know, that
Um,
took tremendous courage.
I in hindsight, I see it now.
Mhm.
Things you don't see when you're in the situation.
Sure.
I was just quiet. I was quiet and I kept to myself. I had something to do, which was finish high school, get my diploma,
Mm.
so that I could see what that next step was going to be.
Wow.
So
And you didn't have the support of the boyfriend anymore. You had
no, no,
mentioned
no,
that.
no, I did not. I did have who is my husband now. He was my first love. He will always be my love. He was in the military at the time.
Oh,
So sorry.
it's okay.
Um, and he knew what had happened, but he was my support system. And you have to remember also in the late 90s, it was phone cards to use to call long distance because he lived in Florida at the time. And it was crazy. We have, letter writing and all
Mm.
that kind of stuff. So we have memories that kids these days don't have. So
Yeah.
he was my support system.
That is amazing. That's
Yeah.
another amazing tale, that he's going to come alongside you and support you,
Yeah.
and this child isn't his. And so
Yep.
that's just beautiful. And I met
Yeah.
him, and he just seems like such an incredible, amazing man.
He
Um,
he
I
is
also wouldn't want to cross
truly.
him because he's pretty big. So, gosh.
Yeah. So he was my support system through the whole thing. If he could have been there during her birth, he would have. He couldn't. He was stationed. I think he was in California at that time, by the time she was born, so he couldn't be there. But the first time he could get home, he came home. He saw her, and it just things have worked out in a way that I never would have imagined
Mhm.
prior to leaving that clinic that day.
So I almost, and it may be what I call the episode, it's like tragedy to treasure.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is.
Beautiful
Because I
story.
felt like I was in the middle of a terrible story. That is this real life? Is this real life? And
Mm.
it just didn't feel like it was real. I was hoping I was going to wake up from it sometimes, and things have just worked out in a way I can't describe.
So let me ask you, with your, because you had him as support, how
Mhm.
were the other students? Were they receptive of you? Did they
Yeah,
mock
I
you?
kept
What was that?
no, I had my core friend group, and the craziest part was it was also my ex-boyfriend's core friend group because we were just a small group that hung out together. So I did have friends that hung around. I did not get mocked. Nobody, if they knew, they knew. If they didn't, they didn't. Um, it wasn't like I wore baggy clothes. I wasn't really showing up until after I graduated. So by the time summer came along, that's really when I started showing. And
Mhm.
but the people that did know, no, they knew whose it was, and they knew how he had treated me. And really, he probably got mocked more than I did. So
Sure.
just for, yeah. So no, they were all supportive. I really didn't. I
Beautiful.
think the least supportive, which was just at home, I just felt like I was alone.
Mhm.
My mom was excited, truly, not to be a grandma at the age of 43, but she was there. She was supportive in her way. She was supportive.
As best she
So
could be, probably.
she did. I think she held back her feelings as well, just because she didn't want my dad to think that this was going to be great. you know, I think she was excited for it. She just didn't want to let that out. So,
Yeah. So there's, I guess the beauty of it is look at where you are now. So if we can fast forward, you've got your daughter, you've already shared, no, it was not easy. Tell me about the transition from you have to accept this now, you've got a child that you're bringing in. Was there
mm,
ever a thought, since you were adopted at 3, was there ever a thought of maybe adoption?
after I had her
Hmm.
and took her home, no,
Okay.
no. And my dad, he did present that to me once he knew that there was a baby coming. He
Hmm.
really, really did try to push adoption on me. He's just like, you're not ready for this. You don't need this in your life. This is, you know, give this child something better. And I'm sorry, but after I had her, there was just something that went off inside of me that was like, I went from selfish to selfless overnight. Um,
Mm.
Inexplicably, again, I don't know how to put it into words. We were meant to be together, truly. She's my mini me, looks just like me,
Oh,
acts like me.
so she's beautiful then.
So there, thank you.
You're
She
welcome.
is she is she's a one of a kind. And I can't imagine having her out in the world and me not knowing her. I think if I had, for me, a piece of me would have been gone. If I didn't think I could have given her the love that I had, and taken care of her in one way or another, I probably would have put her up for adoption. But I did still have this person over here that was still supporting me.
Hmm.
Um, and no, we weren't married at that time, but we did get married. She was 9 months old when we got married, and
Okay.
just it's if I hadn't had his support, maybe things would have been different.
Yeah.
But
So
I can't speak on that.
I really feel, if there's anybody listening right now, if you are alone in this, please reach out. Reach out to Embrace Grace as a curriculum, a small support group that could help you wade through this. And then, of course, your local pregnancy resource centers, just talk to somebody. Um, because whatever decision you make, it ultimately is your decision. And it's a decision that you'll have to live with, whatever that decision
Mhm.
is. So now that you
Yeah.
had the support, it's never easy, but it was
No.
easier because maybe outside of the home, because you had his support, you didn't feel alone, which I think is really important because most of the women that I have talked to, because I've sat in the counseling room, kneecap to kneecap with women who have a surprise pregnancy, and their decisions are based on the boyfriend. So if the boyfriend or even the husband in some cases says, we
Mhm.
can't afford to have another child, you need to have an abortion, they have the abortion. But that abortion impacts not just the preborn child, but it impacts the woman years and years and years and years down the road, especially since we
Mhm.
kind of put it under the rug. Um,
I
so,
wish they didn't.
mm,
I wish that wasn't a stigma, because I think you
yeah,
should be able to talk about it. I don't think you should have to keep it a secret. I only feel that way now. 26 years ago, I did not feel that way.
right.
Um, it's the things you wish you could go tell your younger self.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? I think all of us could do that.
Yes,
But then
everyone
we
can
wouldn't be
relate.
so wise today if we didn't go through those
It's also
trials.
true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now how old is your daughter?
She's 26. She just turned
26.
26.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And so I have a question about her reception of you sharing the story with her from what was intended to where she is now. At what age was that appropriate to share that in your eyes? And how did she receive it?
Um, so I started talking about sex and babies probably right around the age of 12 with her because they were going to start introducing this kind of stuff at school
Yeah.
still. That long ago, they were still talking about it in school, and you didn't have to sign waivers for them to talk about it. Um, so I shared that with her. I want to say she was 12 or 13 years old.
Okay.
And there was another layer to it, and she also finds this to be humorous. At the time when I was at the clinic, they did have to do an ultrasound so that they could make sure that you were actually pregnant and
Mhm.
try to tell how far along you were, besides just basing it off when you say your last period was. And at the clinic, there was twins uh, at the first when I first had the first initial ultrasound so that they could tell me how far along I was before I came back for the actual procedure.
Mhm.
When I went back for the procedure, there was only one embryo showing. They said it can happen. They call it a vanishing twin. She likes to tell people she ate her twin in the womb,
Oh
just
my
as part of
gosh.
her story.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that she consumed, that's why she's such a smart girl, because she consumed
Oh no.
everything else from the other one. So I tell her this when she's 13, and I tell her I didn't go into details about it. I just said, I just need you to understand that if something like this was to happen to you, you can come talk to me.
Mm.
I don't need you to be a secret, and I am here for you no matter what. But her reception of it then was just like, oh, so I wasn't supposed to be here. She was a very intelligent young child, book reader, sponge of everything she reads. So telling her at 13 was like telling her when she was 17. She understood what I meant, but just kind of took it and like, huh, so I'm a miracle baby. And I'm like, yes, in a way you are.
Mhm.
Um,
100%.
today Today, she will tell me, thank you, like on her birthday. Mother, thank you so much for your body doing what it did. Someone coming down up above and letting me have now 26 years on Earth. So she thanks me
That's
in her
powerful.
joking way, but
Yeah.
she does think that she just has 9 lives and she's slowly using them as she gets older.
Oh gosh. So the wise words were make good
So
choices, right?
oh my
That's
gosh.
mm,
Yes. Make good choices. But if you don't, you just know you'll learn something from it.
right.
You know,
There was
you have to trip and get back up again.
right. And there was something that you said there that really stood out to me, and that is that you wanted her to know her story
Mhm.
because, and I'm putting words in your mouth right now, but the way that I read it is you wanted to be relatable to her so that if anything ever happens that she didn't want to happen, you don't want her
Mhm.
to feel the guilt and the shame and condemnation. You want her to know that
Yep.
she has support.
Yes. I wanted her to know from a very young age. And, she has a sister now, and her sister, we were the same way with her. We're very open with our children. We want them to not be afraid to talk about anything. Um,
Oh, that's
it just
important.
I'm an open door. It was not like that when I was a child. It was not like that with my husband when he was a child. It was don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
No, I want you to ask and tell.
And isn't it interesting because you can either mirror what you grew up with or you can do the opposite of what you grew up with. And
Mhm.
so you decided to do the opposite because probably knew what it felt like and you didn't like the way it felt. And so you didn't want your children to experience that. Would that be an
Oh,
accurate
and
statement?
again, yes. It took me a long time to realize that too, but I think I actually used that power probably in my mid-20s is I'm like, I am gonna have to raise my girls differently.
Mm.
There needs to be more because I just felt like there was not so much when I was younger. My brother felt the same way. We have a lot in common. We understand our childhood.
Yeah.
Our parents see it differently, but we understand what we went through as children and what we didn't want when we got older.
So what would you say to the young girl, maybe she's a teenager, who is raised by parents who are very, I don't want to say authoritarian, but almost like a dictatorship, where you don't really
Oh
get
my
to
goodness.
talk about things. What advice would you give them?
Well, there's certain lines you can't cross when you feel you can't cross when you're living under someone's roof and they're taking care of you and providing for you. Um,
Like what
if
lines?
you can, well, like talking back. I mean, yes, they have authority over you. They have a hold over you. Um, but if you're in a situation like I was in and they're not talking, they're not supporting, find someone. Find someone that you can talk to. Um, I don't it could be someone at a local church. It could be the counselor at the school that you go to. But find someone that you can talk to because keeping everything inside and not having someone to express thoughts with and trying to figure it out for yourself is so much harder. Um,
Great, great, great advice to to actually get it off your chest, to talk about whatever is going on. And sometimes we just really want to vent. We're
yeah.
not looking for a fix. We're not looking for suggestions. We just need to vent. We just need to get it off our
Mhm.
chest so that we can move on and get beyond. So
Yeah.
that's very sound advice, really is. And I hope that if there's anybody listening that is feeling kind of stuck, that they do find a trusted person to share
Mhm.
whatever it is that's on their heart.
Mhm.
I just think that's really important. And it will help you to be mentally healthy too, instead of
Yeah.
holding it in. So, I mean, there's another situation that you had shared with me, and we're not going to have time to get into it right now. But oh my gosh, I would you come back at some
Yeah.
point to share the
Yeah.
other story?
My goodness. It's like the total opposite end of the spectrum from this one.
It is, but well, I mean, it's up to you. We've
Uh,
got it's no, it would be too much. We'll lose the audience. So,
okay, gotcha.
but, oh my gosh, you guys will have to come back for Charise when we have her back, because you are not going to want to miss the other story. So this one is extremely powerful. You gave some words of wisdom to the listening audience. Find somebody to talk to, somebody who you can trust. Get resources, whatever resources there are available to you if you have a decision to make about a surprise pregnancy, and find that support. Sometimes part of the resource is finding someone to support you.
Yeah, I know these days it is kind of hard depending on where you live.
Mhm.
Personally speaking, I live in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Um, it's not as easy to do it as it was. Like if you're not you if you don't want the baby, you can't go forward with it and you're not looking to give it up for adoption, those decisions are sometimes made for you depending on where you live. And um, that does make it harder. But there are still people out there you can talk to. There's usually Planned Parenthood in every state. So find one, find someone to talk to.
Well, I'm going to push back on that because Planned Parenthood has one agenda. So I really want people
Um,
to find somebody to talk to who will give them all of the options, not just
okay, that's
one and
fair.
push that one. So
Yeah,
ixnay that. I don't know how to edit that out, but
gotcha.
anyway, um, I think the important thing to know is that it is a life. And
Mhm.
whatever decision you make, again, you are the one that has to live with that decision, nobody else. So make the decision based on what's right for you, but also know that even though we don't broadcast it, that it truly is a child. And at 21 days, there is a heartbeat. So
Yeah.
there are many stories, and we won't get into it here, about things that have gone wrong and deaths that have occurred. So I'm not going to
Yeah.
make this about gore, but your story, because it was so powerful and so beautiful, and the way that you were protected and the way your daughter was protected, just the whole flow of it, and how she knows and she makes a joke about it, and that poor twin, and it just is really, it's amazing. And I appreciate so much that you were willing to share that, because there are some hard details in there. And there were some emotional moments and some triggers. So I thank you for sharing that you did actually survive having a child at 17.
My gosh.
You know,
Surprisingly, yes.
you're
Yes.
not going to die.
No, you're not.
And you
You're going to
can
be put through the
still,
ringer, but you're
yes,
going to make it.
it'll be
You'll
hard,
make
but
it.
you can still
Yeah.
do what you want to do. It just might be delayed.
Yeah. That's
So,
very true. That's the life that I'm currently living now.
yeah,
You said it. That's how we met in the Bahamas, because I'm living my life backwards.
there you go. So you can still have the things that you want. Again, it
You
just might be
can.
delayed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And in the meantime, you'll have a huge blessing when you've got these little arms that are wrapping around you and calling you mommy, and
There's nothing like
to
it.
replace it. And of course, she's old enough now, you can just walk away, right? Not
She does, well, she does still walk up to me and put her arms around me and call me mommy. It's fine.
oh yeah, let's hold on to that forever. Goodness. All right. Well, I am again grateful for you sharing your story. I know that people
Thank
are going
you.
to be moved and blessed by it. And I think it's going to help them to have some insight and possibly even gain some wisdom. If they know somebody who has walked through a hard time, maybe now somebody listening says, I need to be a better support for this person.
Yeah.
So you're going to touch many lives through what you've shared. And
Well,
again,
thank you.
I am going to have you back, because the other story is just as powerful. Man, you got the stories. So
Oh,
thanks again. And
you're
we'll
welcome.
be airing in December. So the first
All right.
Thursday of December is when we'll be seeing you.
Okay. Thank you so
All right.
much, Teresa.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right.